Hi, my name is Jamie Dugdale, and today I will be providing a synopsis of the key concepts in Heather Worthington's The Key Concepts in Crime Fiction. This will be in relation to the two primary texts, The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler and The Monkey's Mask by Dorothy Porter. Genre is a categorization of themes, tropes, and patterns that allow us to recognize, respond to, and reproduce conventions within literary spaces. Genres are not fixed and can change or be revised at any time. They are developing within the social, cultural context in which they are created. Hardboiled crime as a genre was formed within the period of the Great Depression and the Prohibition within the 1920s to 1930s within America. The genre was founded within pulp magazine that was marketed primarily to men. It is during these times that corruption and crime ran rampant. Thus, the genre was formed as a response to the period. Worthington writes, the pulp magazine stories delivered hard-hitting, often graphic, and frequently sadomasochistic and misogynistic representations of crime and its omnipresence in society, which more closely resembled reality. Inspired by the Golden Age detective, which was formed in Britain, the hard-boiled detective takes the idea of a genius detective and twists him into a streetwise brute with a strong moral code in a working-class environment. Worthington writes, Hammett then sets in place a number of the conventions of the hard-boiled detective novel: the lone, incorruptible agent with a highly individual code of honor, the personal investigation within the external crime, the dangerous woman, the gangsters, and the corrupt police. Often set in the rainy downtown streets of LA, the detective lurks alone, solving crimes of exploitation, blackmail, and murder. Pitted against the femme fatale, whilst also being tempted to join the criminal procedure, the hard-boiled detective faces a wave of struggle, trying to solve the crimes at hand to fulfill his strong moral code and values. Hard-boiled crime tropes will often always depict a man as the private investigator set to solve the crime. Raymond Chandler's The Big Sleep refined the genre to what we know it as today. We are introduced to Philip Marlowe, a streetwise sleuth determined to solve the string of crimes that somehow all link back to the Sternwood sisters, Vivian and Carmen. An essential trope to the hard-boiled crime plot, the femme fatale describes a seductive temptress that attempts to lure the detective into traps and trickery. Carmen is set as one of our femme fatales, described with insatiable magnetism and sex appeal. However, Marlowe describes an inkling of disgust. Her sister, Vivian. She is a powerful woman who, in the end, comes out on top. But underlying misogyny describes her as only something to be looked at and nothing more. After meeting these two, we are then presented with the opposite, Mona Mars. In comparison to the Sternwood sisters, Silverwood's description is more serene, beautiful, and picturesque. I drew in the smoke, staring into her lake blue eyes. It is here that we see the virtuous woman, who is undoubtedly unavailable to our detective Marlowe. She has committed no crime other than loving her husband. Therefore, she is considered to be the virtuous woman. Throughout time, a trickle of the revisions began to pour through the genre, leading us to Dorothy Porter's The Monkey's Mask. Worthington writes the political possibilities of the form were explored by feminist writers who took the deeply masculine hard-boiled detective format and used it in part to demonstrate that women too could succeed in this strongly male-gendered literary domain. Worthington writes, the man, and it was always a man, exclusively pointing out the lack of female presence as a powerful being within the hard-boiled crime genre. Within the text, we are presented with our commonly known hard-boiled detective transformed into not only a female, but also a lesbian. Whilst the concept of the man has been revised, the concept of a tough-hitting, streetwise brute remains the same. As Marlowe and Jill share similar qualities, both share a strong moral code, are tough, streetwise, and are pitted against the elusive femme fatale. Both texts clearly have a femme fatale, which is a significant trope within the hard-boiled crime world. The Big Sleep portrays General Sternwood's daughters, Carmen and Vivian. Both sisters are described as dangerous and seductive. In The Monkey's Mask, the femme fatale is Diana Maitland. However, the trope of the femme fatale is revised, as usually the detective is only tempted by the femme fatale. Except Jill falls for Diana and is blinded by her lust, for she is unable to see the truth that Diana knows what happened to Mickey, and has helped cover up her husband's discretion to protect him. Another revision to consider is the lack of underlying misogyny present within The Monkey's Mask. As the females are considered equal to Jill, Diana doesn't need to be saved. In comparison to Marlowe and what could be considered the love interest, Mona Mars, she is inferior, weak, and needs to be rescued. A strong moral code is adhered to by most hard-boiled crime detectives. Within The Big Sleep, Marlowe deviates from his moral code by allowing Vivian to take care of Carmen's indiscretions, instead of turning her into the police for her crimes. This deviation follows into The Monkey's Mask, where it is revised in another form. Instead of showing leniency for her own moral code, she blindly ignores it for lust and sex. This directly correlates to the trope of the femme fatale tempting the detective and deviating them off track to solve the crime. Throughout most hard crime novels, location is pertinent. We see within The Big Sleep, the crime occurs within the boundaries of downtown LA, where it is gloomy and often described to be raining. However, The Monkey's Mask revises this trope as well, as the story is set within the western suburbs of Sydney, where it is prominently sunny. And instead of the detective residing in a downtrodden, solitary apartment, Jill resides within a picturesque mountainside with her cats and the abundance of nature to surround her. Hard-boiled crime's purpose is to produce a realistic representation of social disorder, criminality, violence, and tension of the periods in which they were written. The Big Sleep depicts this notion by representing crime as a convoluted mess of confusion and interlinks, thus representing life within the Great Depression and the Prohibition, which thrived on underground crime. The Monkey's Mask depicts this notion by discussing relevant tensions within current society as the LGBTQI+ community began to grow and the request for equal rights, treatment, and acceptance became more prominent. Much like any genre, the hard-boiled crime genre plays a key role within the literary world as it provides a representation for the darker aspects of life and allows for the discussion of more taboo subjects. The Monkey's Mask successfully revises the concept of the hard-boiled detective. Dorothy Porter took on the tropes of the genre and successfully formed a relevant social commentary and placed them within the slippery world of hard-boiled crime.